Great to see everyone. Tonight, we are doing our 7th session of our workshop series titled Workshop in Sustainability Career Paths and Curriculum. Tonight's panel will be moderated by Professor Travis Bradford. He is a senior lecturer in the discipline of sustainability management at Columbia University. He teaches 2 classes, both very quite popular. One is Energy Systems Fundamentals at the School of International and Public Affairs, which is going on this fall. And then in the spring, Energy Markets and Innovation, 2 sections. So a very busy man. He is also the president and founder of the Prometheus Institute for Sustainable Development, which is a nonprofit organization focused on harnessing the power of the business sector to develop cost-effective and sustainable solutions and technologies, including energy, water, food, and recycling. This evening, joining Travis, we have 3 alumni from the MS in Sustainability Management program and 1 alumni from the Certificate in Sustainable Finance program. To my right, we have Roshni Mali, managing partner at Captona. And then next to her is Greta Golz, senior manager of project finance at Catalyze. And then next to her is David Acott, lead underwriter for real assets at Santander Corporate Investment and Banking. And then finally, we have Luke Apicella, managing partner and CIO of Private Equity North America at Tower Peak Partners, but is also a lecturer in the Sustainability Management program as well. So please join me in welcoming our panelists for tonight.
And thank you all for being here. I know we have a lot of folks online as well. Thank you all for joining online. And then for posterity, some people will be watching this asynchronously because we are the School of Professional Studies. We can do it. We can do it any way that's helpful for you in your learning journey. Anyway, this is a really exciting subject and topic to talk about because it's something that's obviously near and dear to my heart. I teach So I teach energy systems classes, but it really, and those of you, I'm sorry if it's a little PTSD, even for some of the panelists, but the energy system is the most capital intensive system in the world, right? And so if we want to understand the energy system and all the implications, including its implications for climate and environment and society and equity, we have to really understand capital flows. And we have to understand how capital is formed, why it fails to form, and we're talking about a lot of capital. We're talking about trillions of dollars of capital per year. It's now up to $3 trillion a year. When you guys were in school, it was probably only $2 trillion a year. So nice work since you've gotten out of school to keep it growing. And if you believe all the reports that are coming around the need for AI technology and electricity load growth, the expectation is that number is just going to continue to grow. At the same time, there are always risks, there are always uncertainties that abound, and obviously the current political environment creates a particularly acute and salient set of risks that we have to try to accommodate. And so I invited some folks that I thought would really be helpful to guide us in understanding the implications, particularly the implications for you all who are thinking about careers in some aspect of sustainability and finance, and particularly or in energy and finance. And the reason that I think they're so fantastic is not only are these some of my favorite humans on the planet and just lovely people, but they are also people who were sitting in your chair 6, 8, 10, Luke, maybe a little longer, I don't know, years ago that have now left with some of with their natural skills and talents and a little bit of what they've learned here, and have gone on to achieve extraordinary things in the field of energy finance, energy project development, et cetera. So I think we're really fortunate to have them come back and talk about that journey. And I think you guys should we're going to listen to some thoughts that they have early on, but I think you guys should use this opportunity to ask really good questions about the things that you're concerned about, the things that you care about from them, because we're just lucky to have them. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to the people who actually know what they're talking about. And so I guess I just want to go down the line, starting with you, Roshni, and talk a little bit about kind of your journey from into the program, or from the program more specifically, then to where you are now, and what has that journey been like for you? And then everybody can do a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll talk about some more questions.
Okay, this works. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Roshni. I work at an infrastructure investment firm called Captona, where we focus on energy transition infrastructure investments in North America. My journey, I actually studied in Montreal, and then immediately, maybe with like 8 to 1 year's worth of work experience under my belt, applied for this program. And then I didn't really know kind of where or what I wanted to focus on within the SUMA program, the Sustainability Management Program. And when I got here, it was like extremely obvious that all of the students were super interested in energy and all things energy. So I jumped on that bandwagon. And how I landed to where I am today actually is specifically because of this program, in the sense that my now business partner today guest lectured at one of the classes, at the time Aaron Bloomgarden's environmental markets class, and that's how I found out about the company. And then the SEPA and the SUMA career fairs are also really good. Like our firm also attends these career fairs every year, and I think there's one maybe happening this week, or something going on this week here. But anyway, through the class, through the guest lecture program, I found out about this company, and then I applied as an intern, and then I never left. So that is, it's not a very jumpy journey. Kind of, stuck around from where I started, and was able to watch a company grow. It was established at the time, founded in 2008, but it grew into something that was completely new at the time. And watching it kind of grow and survive, but also thrive in the different administrations, and the different sort of political environments, and even different states coming up with different sort of incentive programs and et cetera, and sort of figuring out where our niche spot is, and finding places to invest within the U.S. And that's it.
And now you're managing partner.
And yeah, so I went from intern to managing partner. I do think it comes with not moving. So I did stay and slogged away for 10 years. But yeah, it's been an amazing kind of journey to watch one firm grow and change and evolve, and happy to continue to be a part of it.
Thanks, Greta.
Good level of volume. Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Greta Golz. I'm currently a senior manager of project finance at Catalyze. We're a solar energy and battery storage developer, as well as independent power producer, so IPP. And besides kind of working on reviewing financial models, so optimizing risk return profiles of projects as well as portfolios, I also focus on the automation and the software integration of financial models across the firm. So kind of taking more of a role that's at the interface of the finance side and the technology side of the business. I originally studied economics at the University of Chicago, and studied some computer science there as well. And then I went to work at JP Morgan's investment bank. That's where I kind of started with a more general, broader finance training, and then found green bonds. So that was what ultimately got me really interested in financing sustainable projects at that time, the corporate level. And then I started thinking, hey, I'm really interested in the real asset side of things. And with that, decided to attend the sustainability management program, and here really focused on the renewable energy side of things. And yeah, I ended up working at a solar energy developer after graduating, and then have worked at a couple different developers and asset owners since. And I also previously worked at a structured credit fund, where I was helping to build out a new impact investing business line as head of ESG analytics. So have kind of worked both more the project finance side, but also some of the ESG type of work.
Fantastic. Thanks. David.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm David, originally South African, and storyline a little bit similar to Greta. I was originally a quant, so I started off as a derivatives banker. And after 8 years of that, I sort of thought to myself, does the world really need another structured derivative, or does it need something else? So I chose to specialize in real assets because there's an inherent value in being able to see the results of your work. But it took me a while to get there. At that stage, I was in Singapore, so I transferred to New York. Once I was in New York, I got into the Columbia program. And as I finished the Columbia program, a role opened up in my firm. I was at Deutsche Bank at the time. I moved on to their project finance desk. And then after a couple of years, a friend had an opening at Santander. And I came over as lead underwriter starting off for energy project finance. But now I'm managing all real assets. So energy, core infra, digital, and commercial real estate.
Appreciate that. So I'll start with the exciting part, which is that I am a faculty here, and I see a couple of familiar faces. I'm looking at you now, and I'll see you tomorrow, and for that, I'm sorry. But you obviously didn't look at all the panelists. Here we are. So I'm the CIO of Tower Peak Partners for Private Equity North America, and you know, that's a big title. I know it sounds really glamorous. Private equity is really cool. You can get there if you put the target far enough in front of you. For me, I basically started studying entrepreneurship in undergrad and knew that finance was going to be the ticket to really building businesses. So from that degree, I went and started working at Prudential, landed in their impact investment group, did that for about 20 years. Along the way, I studied, I went to business school at NYU and then did the SUMA program at Columbia. It basically gave me the chance to do investing in all different assets, all different life cycle stages of companies. It was an amazing experience, it still is. And I would say I have one common theme to all of my investment work, and it's basically I'm trying to find a capital gap, trying to take a risk that no one else will do, and figure it out. And that's kind of what I try to offer the world, which is trust me with your money.
So thank you all. And I think hopefully you guys recognize, you know, to talk about it the way I talk about it in class, the point of capital formation, the $3 trillion worth of capital that's being deployed every year in the various forms of energy investment, has a buy side and a sell side, right? And we've got representatives here who have worked on both of those. There's different roles. There's a lot of different jobs, and I think it's one of the things people don't realize when you get interested in energy or when you get interested in finance is that how many people it takes and how many different roles it takes in order to get these transactions over the line. From the first conception of what what a project might look like, all the way to the operations and management of things that have been funded, built, and are actually producing. And so there's just a lot of different types of jobs, and so it's almost everything you can imagine. But I wanted to get a good panel of folks who could represent different parts of that system and that ecosystem. That being said, it feels like when I read the newspaper and I hear about a lot of, how should we say, political perturbations and restrictions on capital and permitting and all kinds of things, it feels to me like the energy investment space is at risk right now. So in order to understand where the jobs are and where the opportunities are, we need to understand the system into which we're innovating, right? So my first question isn't about career, it's about energy finance. Is energy finance actually a good field these days, given what we're hearing about and seeing about in the media? And any of you are welcome to answer, or we can make this more of a conversation if you'd like.
Look, I think absolutely. The incredible growth that we're seeing in AI is astounding. The metrics I've seen are that America's fixed capital formation as a proportion of GDP is higher now than at any time since the railroad boom of the 1880s. Now, lots of that is going to chips, lots of that is going into buildings, but if a few crumbs are going into energy, that's still an incredible amount of energy that's needed in the system. And for the next 5 to 10 years, this country is going to need lots and lots and lots of energy and energy finance professionals.
I can second that. I will say energy is a basic need. We cannot live without it. There will always be, it will always be one of the largest sectors in the world. And today, like you said, I mean, with especially in the U.S., especially in North America, where the current administration wants to lead AI and sort of what's the word, data security, and be a leader in that, you need to power that. And the problem, or the kind of the topic that we are talking about all the time today is, nat gas turbines are just not available. You cannot build them fast enough. There's a shortage. There's also, tariff and FIAC and related issues. And the other fact today is it is cheapest and fastest to build solar today. So you're basically, you have a demand curve that is shooting up. And I think ICF says in the next 5 years, power demands are going to increase by 25%. In the next 20 years, they're going to increase by 80%. So this is like an insane demand curve. And supply is basically just scrambling to meet those numbers. And if that's kind of the position that we're in, the term that is also being thrown around, or at least was earlier this year, is energy addition instead of energy transition. And that just means like every single type of technology needs to be considered in order to just meet that demand. And we're kind of throwing the kitchen sink at it. And so that includes solar, storage, biogas, fuel cells, microgrids, nuclear, hydrogen, run-of-the-river hydro, like all of these, and then nat gas. So all of these kind of players are at the forefront because you need everything to sort of solve this insane demand curve that's happening today.
You said, I would also add to that yeah, it's this fundamental need, and there have been challenges certainly in the last couple months, the period before that even, right? So the One Big Beautiful Bill definitely presented challenges to the industry, and that kept up a lot of people at night thinking about how do we deal with this. But for me, there were a lot of takeaways that were quite positive from it. So the overall headline is not necessarily the whole story. And what I've seen was that different players reacted in kind of different ways. And so some parts of the industry are certainly challenged a little bit more, especially if you're not well capitalized. You are more likely to be challenged in this situation, but other players were able to kind of come up with creativity, strategic thinking, and analysis with strategies for weathering this kind of storm. So I think one theme that I kind of hear a lot and I remind myself of is that this is kind of the current time. This is not a permanent change. This is the current environment, and it's more about building bridges for the next couple of months and years than it is kind of a permanent state of things. And yeah, another part I saw that when kind of things got hard, people do come together and discuss and form strategies. So I like to see that collaboration actually increasing during this environment between different companies, different players, and people coming up with, for example, what we call safe harboring strategies and kind of the solar energy space, for example. So there are ways to deal with challenging times. It's usually a matter of doing the analysis, collaborating, really digging into the details, and then coming up with a strategy. But it definitely highlights the need for being well capitalized. So one recommendation I do have is when you're looking at companies, you're interviewing companies, is try to really engage with the company's plan at large. Like, what do they think their business is going to look like for the next year, next couple of years? Kind of what do their financials look like? So try to engage as much as you can with the state of their own financials if you can.
I love how you characterize that as interviewing companies that you want to work for. It's a great framing, and one I think that you should focus on. You do your due diligence just like they're doing theirs. Anyway, Luke, did you want to add something to that?
You know, agreed. That's some grounded advice. Yeah, it's hard to say something different. I'm going to try, or at least I'm going to keep talking until something comes out. But in Professor Bradford's class, he introduced me to the levelized cost of energy, right? And once you understand that, you're at a game of how do you make something cheap? When does that game end? Basically at zero marginal cost, right? That game is still going on, and you're going to have opportunities if you want to play that game. The other thing is we have more distributed energy. More distributed energy means more decision makers. More decision makers means more jobs. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And then finally, I guess I would say I think energy is probably more relevant than ever before. It's like now way more part of your sort of lexicon. People talk about it all the time. Everyone understands it. It used to be, you know, you'd hear about the 70s and the fuel crisis. Now it's like, no, we talk about energy in all ways, all times, all different types of energy. And you know, there's even concepts of energy just becoming currency itself. So you want to learn energy, you're in a good place.
That's awesome.
Just follow
Yeah,
up quickly.
please.
Greta mentioned the one big bill. I'm sure there's.
I love how you dropped the word beautiful out of it. I refute beauty's in the eye of the beholder in it.
It's just too long to say. A brief, it's expediency. So the one big bill has definitely introduced policy volatility, right? And as sort of on autopilot. The ITCs got renewed every 4 or every 8 years, and everyone did the whole ITC, and you weren't too worried, and you safe harbored some transformers, but you knew they were going to be extended, and suddenly there's this variability. Now, world, the people who follow the pattern, like they're given a blueprint and they just do it and they copy paste, and they're the carbon copiers of the world. And then they're the people who operate in principle, who understand why something is done. And those are the people who can respond to changes, who can find an optimal strategy when your environment changes. And Columbia is such a good program to understand the fundamentals to be able to respond, because either your company needs to respond to change, or we're a bank, right? We need to be able to give ideas to our clients so that they can respond to that uncertainty. And so you want to be here to build on your, as opposed to financial capital, intellectual capital. Travis is going to give me a brownie point for that, right? But seriously,
you just created PTSD in some of
but seriously, use the time at Columbia to really understand what the drivers are and how people are responding to those drivers, because I don't think that the one big bill is the end of policy change. I think the next 10 years are going to be a series of policy changes. And so you really want to have those fundamentals grounded so that you can respond quickly to any change in policy. And talking about society's discussion of energy, there is a good chance that energy bills are going to be a driving point in the 28 election. I can see the demand from, equals 101, demand goes up, prices go up. Well, when prices go up, the average Joe on the street is going to see his energy bill go up. And so watch the space 2028.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly on display last week, and in the few elections that we saw, how big of an issue that played. So I want to be in the interest of time, I actually want to talk a little bit more specifically about the types of jobs. I mean, I'm glad that you guys are optimistic about the sector and the growth and the need for the different types of jobs. But if people are trying to position themselves to be targeting the sweet spot of the employment over the next couple of years, few years, as they're coming through the program and getting out, where do you think that where are you currently seeing job openings, and where do you think that more of those will emerge in the coming years?
So let me go first here. The first kind of principle is follow the money, right? So you should all be subscribed to newsletters. Sightline is good, right? CTVC is a good one. Follow these deals. Those are the beginnings of job creation, right? That's growth capital. So that would be a really good start, I would think. Let me pass it off. Keep this quick.
And speak to the people who've been closing the deals. Informational interviews. Hi, I saw you close this deal. okay. The most disarming comment in the world is, "Hi, I'm a student," right? Because immediately someone says, "Oh, okay, you're not a threat, you're not a competitor," and people open up to you. So call them up, send an email. "Hi, I'm a student and I'd like to speak to you about X, Y, Z." That's your in. And it might not be an in 6 weeks, but it might be in 6 months.
So I'll speak a little bit about the types of jobs kind of at the developer and IPP part of the business. So I do think that kind of most of the roles there are here to stay. I don't really see them going away. There may be a slight shift in sort of how much is in one place or another and the types of technologies you'll see more in. But overall, I think that kind of the overall structure is kind of here to stay. That being said, there's probably going to be some consolidation. So just echoing the part about the better capitalized the firm, the better, your chances are of kind of being there for the longer term. I do think that batteries are already technologies that has been growing a lot, and both with the policy changes and just overall the state of the grid, batteries are becoming increasingly important. So I think the more battery skills like battery modeling, for example, you can gain, I think that's going to be something that's going to differentiate you. And also there's going to be more and more jobs related to batteries. And a lot of people, frankly, don't understand batteries. So you can add a lot of values to a lot of these companies. And then I think on this finance side, I think there's kind of the more project finance, maybe more modeling heavy work, where you're mostly doing spreadsheets, let's say. And then there's kind of more the capital markets, trying to raise capital and finance the projects. So I think both of those are continuing to be there. I do think ultimately the capital market side of the business is probably a little bit harder to automate because it's a lot of relationship work, a lot of talking to people, talking to banks, right? That's not really stuff that you can automate as easily. Versus on the modeling front, still not that easy to automate, given I do work on the automation side, and it is quite challenging in a lot of ways. So I think those jobs are going to be there, but I think there is going to be, automation plays a larger role in kind of how many jobs are going to be in that type of space.
Okay, I'm going to take a slightly different approach, but I do agree with everything that everyone said. As an example, so investment shop, and what that means is that, or what we pitch to our investors is that I will take a deal, me and my team will take a deal, we'll find it, and we'll bring it from, late stage development all the way through to operations, and we'll run it. And so the way our company is organized is into these verticals. So I think maybe talking through the verticals might be helpful to understand where you could find a job even within those verticals in separate companies themselves. So we have a deal team, which is someone who originates. We have a head of origination, which is finding and sourcing good projects from quality developers, under the radar type of deals. And then we have, within that deal team, we have the origination and we have the deal structuring. And so that's my vice presidents, my associates, my analysts who will tear this model apart, go through due diligence, figure out, okay, what are the underlying assumptions in this model? How can I stress test them? How do I keep the developer honest, in terms of what their assumptions are and whether we think they're realistic or not realistic, reading through all of the project contracts, figuring out, what terms are bankable, where we can get financing, and what terms need to be fixed. So that's like deal team. So within the shop, we also have people on the team who, if we decide to do a deal and we acquire it right before it kicks off construction, I have a team who will actually manage the construction. So it's another kind of field where you can look at, where you get in on this project and you have to manage the construction and make sure that the the EPC is doing its job. It's bringing this project on time and on budget. And I can tell you right now that is literally never the case. Something always goes wrong all the time. And you need that person who is looking after the project as an owner. That's a super important vertical. Then you have asset management, which is once this project is running, you need a team of people to be like, okay, did we pay the rent? Like, or did we get paid? Did somebody pay us? Who's my off taker and are they paying on time? And who's my landlord and do I have to pay them? And what do property taxes look like this year? And are we on time and are we on budget? And there's like a full vertical and jobs in that space that you can look into. And then finally, there's O&M, which is operations and maintenance. So, whether it is solar or storage or biogas or anything, you need a professional to show up and make sure this asset is functioning and producing the kilowatt hours so that you could make the dollars, to put it in the most simplest terms. And that in and of itself, it's going to the site or it's implementing preventative maintenance, it's implementing corrective maintenance, all of these things. And so I would say, from a different lens, there's these different verticals within the energy space that you can explore.
Yeah, fantastic. And as I point out, like,
Could I add one more thing to that? Because I think one of the verticals you mentioned was the asset management side of things. And I actually think that the asset management side of things in the renewable energy space is oftentimes overlooked for people who are interested in kind of the finance side of things. A lot of people look more at the investment side or project finance, where you're doing essentially the forecasting, the modeling. Does this make sense to do or not? But in the industry, increasingly important is actually the asset management side. The more assets are coming online, the more is the need to actually manage those assets that are operating. And if you're on the asset management side of the business, you're essentially in charge of managing the revenue of the company. So these operating portfolios are getting bigger and bigger. So there's more opportunities on the asset management side. And especially, I think, if you don't have an actual finance background, this could be an avenue for you into kind of more finance-related roles that are where you may not need as much in-depth knowledge of, for example, let's say debt and equity, structured finance, capital markets, et cetera, where you're at first going to be focused a little bit more on kind of the revenue and the operating expenses, but it's so related because it's ultimately the feedback loop to the financial modeling. Are your assumptions right? Do you have good assumptions? That's kind of one of the most important considerations when you're doing modeling in the first place. So they work ultimately very closely together, and I think that there's increasing opportunities in that side of the industry as well.
Greta, I think that's a great point. We bring all of our new analysts through. So in a bank, it's called portfolio management. You're making sure that your off-taker has paid you and you've paid your rent. We're making sure that our borrower has paid our interest and principal, and that we cover our cost of funds. So in a bank, it's normally portfolio management. Our incoming analysts through portfolio first, because you don't know how projects have operated, you're not going to be very good at projecting how they will operate. So seeing how projects are working, whether it's on the developer side or the financing side, is incredibly important.
Great. All right, all the way back to me. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. The verticals, that was a great explanation. And Greta, I just want to expand on something, which is look at yourself. Like, we just basically did like a pretty good outline on external opportunities, but this function exercise really requires a little introspection as well. Don't try to go too far away from your past, your experience. That expertise is really valued. And the people that are going to be taking risks on you, they want to know that the story is sound. So use your function. If it's an engineer or whatever it is, start there, get into the organization, and then you can prove yourself inside the walls.
yeah, fantastic. As you can see, lots of different jobs, lots of different angles, lots of different ways I think it's a great point to integrate your background and to sort of bend your vector toward something that's more sector relevant. And but as you start pulling back the layers here, there are a lot of really good jobs you would enjoy, jobs that pay really well, especially if you're following the money, as Luke said. So I want to talk a little bit now about it's still, there's still a lot of different types of jobs, but folks have come to the sustainability management program or the SEPA program. They've invested, a couple of years on average of their life to better themselves. I want to talk about kind of your recommendations now that I know you all had these same questions when you were here, because you all asked me these questions when you were here. Is to kind of how to get the best use of your time while you're in the program. And I guess there's two parts to that, and we'll take them in sequence. Maybe the first part is academically. What kind of classes would you, or what kind of classroom experiences would you recommend to both build skills and build the visibility of your capabilities and the visibility of your sort of demonstrated interest in a particular area? How do you think about course selection? What kind of classes would you recommend? And by the way, just so you know, we gave them homework. They had to look at a list of classes that were currently being taught. We'll see how well, we'll grade them afterwards to see how well they did on their homework, just to turn the table a bit. That are currently offering, there were probably 50 or more. Yeah. It's 85. Thank you, Maria. Sorry. But anyway, academically, like class-wise, skills-wise, like how do you use your time most effectively while you're in a program like this?
I will be the first person to get brownie points on a recording, but I will say that your class, as much as I may or may not have paid attention.
This is the paid advertising portion of the exercise.
I decided I'd just go first and get it over with. I will say if it's somewhat new, if you're like from finance or you're and entering into this field, or you're kind of coming at this and it's new, getting the lay of the land in terms of like what exists, what's out there, and basic terminology. I mean, the fastest way to look like you know what you're doing is also to understand the language and use the right terms. So it's a good cheat code. But you also learn in the class, and I think even having like a basic understanding of how different technologies work, depending on the type of shop you end up at, I think it gives you a really good leg up in that sense of like you have that flexibility. And I think like for us at Captona, we're lucky enough to be able to explore different technologies, and our portfolio today is, we own and operate solar storage, fuel cells, microgrids, biogas, and I think having a basic understanding going into a company like that who has a sort of a wider lens on investing in North America and the energy transition is extremely helpful. The other class that I think was also really helpful is just the financial modeling class, because I think somewhat unique to the energy space are the investment tax credits, and getting out of here with a basic knowledge of how important that subsidy, that tax incentive is to the space is really important, even though and lucky for you guys, it's gotten way less complicated. I think it used to be, and some people still do the traditional tax equity, which is pretty complicated. So having kind of a grasp on that, I would say, is important.
So in terms of how to spend your time at Columbia, well, I'll just tell you my experience so you can use it or throw it away as you feel fit. But for me, there were three really important things being Columbia. The first, obviously, was the content, and I'll get into that shortly. But the energy space is complicated, and there are concepts that really, the foundation concepts that you need, and there are advanced concepts which you're only going to get when you're studying full-time or you're dedicating study time. You're not going to get just in the industry. The second is signaling. The fact that you're spending time and money studying the space tells people that you're interested. And then the third is connections. How can you build up those connections? How can you come here and speak to Luke or Greta or Roshni? It is Roshni, isn't it? Yeah. And say, hey, I'm a student. I loved your speech. Can we have a coffee? That's how I ended up with my first job, but I'll tell you about that later. So those three: the content, the signaling, and the networks. All of those are important. You talked about technologies. Yes, there are courses describing all the technologies, but read. Go out look at not only the deal flow, but really just the news that's being printed, podcasts, currents from Norton Rose, the Energy Gang, who are back on again. Yay! Catalyst by Shale Khan. Just listen to stuff and find out what's happening. Find out where the frontier is in terms of technology deployment, so that you don't just have your course content, you also have an awareness of what's happening in the world. And then don't only, I mean, the SUMA program is great. Don't kill me, Maria, but look outside it as well. There are other courses in university. You may be able to cross-register. You may be able to order those courses. I sat in on Michael Gerard's energy law course and wasn't registered for it, but he allowed me to sit in. That was great. There are so many good courses across the campus. Don't just limit yourself to SUMA. You're part of this great Columbia system. Use it.
Out there, part-timers. Shout outs to my part-time people. Yeah. All right. So I think I had a pretty bespoke approach. Basically, what I was trying to do was I knew that knowledge is pretty transient. I basically forget things right after I take that class. So I said, I'm going to pair up my classwork with my deal flow, and that honestly worked better than you could imagine. So if you have any of these interests that you have in your professional life, find that class that basically augments it. I can tell you 4 examples. I took Professor Bradford's energy class when I was doing a North Carolina solar state tax credit deal. It was really exciting. I did an energy efficiency, analysis of energy efficiency class when I was looking at a Deutsche Bank energy services agreement, limited partnership fund. And I took a sustainable ag course when I was investing in a vertical farming company. And I think I had one more, but this is what always happens when you say that there's 4: energy efficiency, energy markets, and environmental markets. So I did a stormwater retention credit system investment down in Washington, D.C., and I took a class on environmental markets. So there, I hit all 4.
A couple of classes that were really helpful and some that I would like to take, given that I looked at that list. So the class, I think my top class out of all the classes I took was the solar development class, so solar project development, I think with Dan Giuffrida. So he's a really great teacher, and he teaches you very concrete skills and really makes you practice exactly what you'd be doing at the job. And so generally, I would recommend taking classes that give you concrete opportunities to practice the skills that you're going to be using on the job, and also looking at what types of jobs the actual professors have themselves. So I actually ended up working with Jan Giuffrida after I graduated. So that's also just a good reminder that your relationships in general matter, but your professors are an amazing resource. So really take the time to engage with them. I think that goes a really long way. So obviously relationships are going to help the most in getting jobs. It's just still the way it is. So as much as you can form meaningful relationships rather than, a huge quantity, I think it's more important to form relationships with people that resonate with you, that are doing interesting things to you. So yeah, for me, that was the most impactful class, both from a content level as well as my career, because I ended up going into the field that I wanted to go into, and I'm still here. So I think that's the one that I like the most. And then if I'm looking at the opportunities now, I see technology kind of being a huge part of where the industry is going. So I do work on automation and kind of software integration. So courses where you are able to learn kind of more technology skills, I think, are going to be really helpful. So I think the intelligent energy systems course, where you're going to learn about battery and AI, that one is a course that I certainly would want to take. So again, just battery having a lot of opportunity and AI playing a huge role in where the industry is going. And there, I think you get to actually practice modeling. So similar, it seems a little bit similar to the solar project development class. And then I saw one on data science, which I don't have too many details, but again, for my work, for example, I do use Python, I use SQL, I use different kinds of technologies in order to automate financial analysis. So I think with the way that the industry is going overall, the more that you can use kind of more, programming type skills, even if you're not an expert in it, there's ways to leverage these skills. You can learn those things on the job, even honestly. So yeah, I think that's a kind of a path forward.
Yeah, I think that's great. And there's an evolving set of classes and techniques in the classes. And one of the things that I'm spending a lot of time these days working on is trying to figure out how to bring more AI tools into the classroom, not in the way you're currently using them probably, but in ways that actually will further enhance the learning outcomes. But it is a policy and a strong strategic objective of SPS and the SUMA program to make sure that you guys are going to be prepared to use these tools regardless of which class you take. We want to integrate more and more of these tools into the learning environment because the employers that you're going to be talking to are going to expect that you're conversant with, and in some cases, expert in some of these tools. So I think these are all great pieces of advice, especially the one about taking my class. So thanks for that. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I want you guys to ask some questions. But the last question to the panel, I think, is one that I get a lot from students, is kind of how to identify the jobs, and I guess the sub part to that question, is how might you most effectively use the alumni network, which is vast and growing and very generous. I've been really impressed by the alumni at SEPA, the alumni at SUMA, and the entire Columbia energy and sustainability ecosystems. Is just how powerful they have been to support those that have come behind them. This panel is a shining example of that. But what's the best way to find opportunities and include maybe your thoughts on how to best use alumni to learn more about where those opportunities might exist?
David, I love the idea of disarming people by telling them that you're a student, right? That's a great way to create an informational interview. The other thing is, you can access professors, right? Travis, I don't know how you feel about this, but constantly getting kind of cold calls and cold emails from students, and I do my best to take those on. I've actually hired 5 interns out of this program, out of those conversations, and if you look under your seat right now, everyone gets an internship. Woo! No, look, this is going to take a lot of work. We're not going to sugarcoat it, right? This is an exercise for yourself. The education helps you. You get into the right rooms, but it's going to take goal setting that you keep private to yourself, but that you focus on day in and day out, and you know what steps it takes. This is just a personal exercise. There's no answers out there except what you already know how to do. I hope I didn't take any wind out of people's sails.
You've said so many good things. Totally personal. You also mentioned about anchoring from your current skill set, because your comparative advantage in the workspace is going to be something that is not the same as, but similar to what you've done previously. So make your prior skills relevant to your future role, and target roles that have some nexus with what you've done in the past. Totally agree with you on the informational interviews. And about going through your professors, not only Travis, but all the other great professors across Columbia, getting them to recommend people to speak to. But my key suggestion is not how you open the informational interview, but how you close it. 2 things. 1, be curious about other people. Don't just expect them to give you a download, but ask questions. Show that you understand who they are and what they're interested, and what problems you can solve for them. Because at the end of the day, Any employer just has a whole bunch of problems, and they want someone to come in and help them solve problems. And the second, leverage on people, right? And ask them who they know. This is a key trick I'm going to teach you. People always want to show off not only what they know, but who they know, right? So you say, hey, you're really successful in this field. I'm interested in this. Who else do you think I should speak to, right? And someone's going to give you a download to show how many people in the industry they know. And there's 5 times the contacts, and leverage that, right? Suddenly you're at 1 contact, 5 contacts, 25 contacts, 125, 625, right? Now you're at 600 contacts. Well, now you're definitely in the range for scoring one of those and getting a job out of one of those 600.
I think that those were already really good tips. I like that last one. I think I'll just add to it that LinkedIn is a great resource because basically everyone has LinkedIn at this point, and you can see the, who that knows someone else. So I think looking up people and then seeing who do you know even that could connect you to them. I think that's something that has previously worked for me. If there's someone that, it's an opportunity to catch up with that person that you may not have caught up with. First, try to actually catch up with them before asking them for a favor. So it's a good way to just guide you generally. And then after you've caught up, you can actually see if they'll introduce you to the person that you want to know. So I think just leveraging who you already know, identifying through LinkedIn who can kind of help you get to know people that you're interested in. And then I think the other part that I would highlight is if you're kind of applying for jobs and you want to stand out and you do know someone that's that either you know someone who already works there or you know someone who knows someone who already works there, try to do that and see if they will recommend you, because oftentimes they will. Sometimes it's something as, something like they'll get a referral bonus, right? So some people may literally just do it because of that, which take advantage of that. But some people also, again, may just want to help you out or are interested in what you have to say. So yeah, I just say take advantage of kind of your network, even if you don't directly know the people, and yeah, try to catch up with people first before asking for favors. And yeah, focus more on actually building these relationships rather than making it very transactional, because you don't know, even if you don't get a job out of it, you're still going to get useful information out of it. And the best relationships are going to be those that are going to last, not those that necessarily even give you a job like immediately.
Networking is really hard. And especially if you have like a end goal in the back of your mind, I think it can make it even harder and more stressful. So I would say start early, start before you actually need to find a job. And that takes the pressure off of you, and that takes the pressure off of someone you're contacting, because it really is purely, informational at that point. And so if you start early, I think you have a better chance of doing exactly what everybody just said, which is like form a real-ish relationship, and be curious and kind of, don't have one conversation and then can be like, and are you hiring? Because I think it takes, it creates, it makes it a little bit difficult for both parties. Echoing what David said, it's like, it also takes the pressure off and helps the other person think about you more in a different way when you ask for someone else to talk to, because they're thinking like, okay, well, what is it about this person that I think I could sort of connect them with another person and who would find them of value? So asking that question is really important, because it helps the person on the other side kind of, quote unquote, put you in a box so that they can refer you to someone else, put you in a box in a good way. Career fairs. We want to hire. We come to the Columbia Career Fair to hire. So going to those career fairs, you're already kind of in the mix of people who are actively looking to hire people. I think that would be the second thing. And I had a third thing, but So you have the professors. You also have your own network. I think the thing that was cool about SUMA for me was I came like 1 year out of a bachelor's degree, bless you. I came 1 year out of a bachelor's degree, but there were people, I think similar to some people here too, like you guys had full jobs and you were coming for maybe a career switch or you were coming to just enhance something that you wanted to sort of work on. But, not only are there are people in your own network, in your own class, sitting right next to you who can have more experience than you and who actually have the benefit of seeing you on a day-to-day basis. And so, creating that relationship is also less strenuous because they're with you every day and they're watching you every day. They see you in different classes, et cetera. So that's, your own classmates are your network when you do a master's program like SUMA. And also the guest lecturers, because that's a direct example of how I found my job. So I think Columbia does a great or is great at bringing in talented professors, or bringing in their friends and their contacts and just like people in the industry, and then they're right in your classroom. So you have a leg up over anyone else who's trying to cold outreach them.
That's fantastic.
If I can, just a quick comment on networking. There's a battle for attention, right? I don't know how many thousand unread emails you guys have. Yeah, right. I rest my case. I'm on 8, and I'm on 8, and I changed my PC about 2 months ago. So going to email me, and that's great. I really look forward to it after this course. But there's a battle for attention. I'm going to try and get to them all. I promise you. But there's just a lot going on. So it's harder to get the attention of directors, MDs who are strangers. But if you target someone who graduated this course a year or 2 ahead of you, they're probably going to have a little bit more. They're going to be able to pick up your email. They're probably going to have more time to have a coffee, to assess you more thoroughly, to make some more contacts internally. So I would suggest, yes, shoot for some VPs, Ds, MDs, but also spend a lot of time on the folks who are analysts or associates, who are a couple of years out of this program, who are not going to be making a hiring decision. These guys haven't got a job for you, right? They're not going to be making a hiring decision. All they're going to do is help introduce you into organizations, but they'll assess your credibility and they'll carry weight. So if they say, hey, I spoke to this guy, he's good. I think, Travis, you're going to get onto the interview process, but for me, it's half an hour, right? And I can't diligence all your technical skills in half an hour. I'm relying on a junior who has done that diligence. So network into that junior level, that early professional level.
Fantastic. Thank you. I am going to put a little marker down, because even though you can't really imagine it, pretty soon you're going to be one of those alumni. You're going to be someone out in the field. You'll be out a year or 2, and you might get out of your thousands of emails, you might actually get a request. You probably don't have a job to give them at that point, but perspective and understanding about how the world looks from on the outside can be incredibly valuable. And I think you can appreciate that now, being on this side of that. But just know that if you get that email, give it some consideration when you get out there. It's why we have a great alumni network, because you guys are the kinds of people who do try to answer all the emails, even if you can't get around to all of them. So with that, you're actually still students, and you probably have a lot of questions and concerns. So I'm happy to take a couple of questions. Are we doing a microphone? So, gentleman in the back. Sorry, I made it hard for you on the very first one. No pressure.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I am a final semester SUMA student. My focus has been on real estate finance. Currently, especially in the built environment, sustainability is not the highest priority. And the SUMA program is extremely cutting edge. I'm in that battery storage class. I'm in that sort of solar power development class. When interviewing, how do you kind of surface those skills, even though they're not necessarily applicable right now against traditional underwriting practices? How do you kind of sort of manage that perspective and kind of highlight some of the value that's coming down the pipeline that you guys also highlighted as it relates to traditional asset investors?
I worked in a real estate group for a long time, real assets group. And I think the first thing to do is frame it the right way, show your perspective that you have. Don't go in guns blazing like everyone needs solar when you know that the NOI isn't really going to move on solar. Adjust it, come in, say, 90% of the NOI is going to be on your, OpEx rental margin. But here's where I think the newest technologies are really making return, payback, IRR, whatever it is that you want to add into that. Say, have you guys seen that? And is it an introduction that you'd like to see? My idea for how to have a good interview is if you can write a white paper that you think the interviewer would read, then you've prepared enough for that interview, and you should be able to provide an abstract on that idea.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on who you're interviewing with, right? If you're interviewing with the real estate arm of big private equity, they're probably focused on their multiple invested capital. They're just looking at bottom line, right? And so to that point, how does your sustainability hit their bottom line? If you're interviewing with a community reinvestment act, a CRA focused fund, look at the CRA, look at the LIHTC angle, understand the value of the organization you're interviewing with, make your skills relevant to them, and at the same time, interview them, right? Is this the environment I want to be in? If you really, really want to deploy solar on low-income rooftop, look, don't go into a commercial real estate fund. I mean, that's an obvious example, but find a place where your values align.
That's a really good point. I would add to that kind of focusing first on kind of seeing what it is that they need and focusing on those core skills they're asking for and showing that you got that before you necessarily add the sustainability layer in terms of on top of that. So obviously it's integrated in your approach overall, but I would focus on the transferable skills and first show, let's say it's, modeling that, whether it's solar or real estate, kind of modeling real assets, investments is a skill that you have. So I'd kind of start with framing the overall kind of core skills that are relevant to that business. And then kind of picking for examples, you can bring in particular projects, case studies that you worked on to kind of show how, what the impact has been and kind of seeing what they're interested in on the sustainability front or kind of innovation, anything kind of they're interested in, and then bringing in those examples to meet what it is that they're already kind of thinking about.
I would just say like that this is a business, and I think focus on how they're going to make money. At the end of the day, like, we're an energy transition shop. We don't have like sustainability goals projected on our website. I mean, it's the business that we're in. And so I don't need to like find a layer of ESG and sustainability to go on top of it. It just, you talk numbers, and, at the end of the day, it's not a sustainability thing. If you want to make money, the cheapest and fastest way to do it is, for example, a solar project. It doesn't have to be a sustainable thing. It just has to be financially sound.
Am I on? There we go. That's a great point, right? Policy is how the economic incentives are changed to make sustainability more profitable or not. So if you really want to focus on encouraging sustainability, you want to be in a policy shop, right? If you're focused on deploying capital, you're deploying capital under the current set of incentives. Those incentives are, we talked about the one big bill, and how, I'm saying that because it's shortest. Yeah. We're talking about the one big bill, right? Less incentives for solar, but in parallel, more incentives for energy of every kind given the huge demand from AI data centers.
Super. More questions, ma'am?
Here. I'm a first-year SUMA student, and I'm really interested in energy in the Global South and just renewable energy in the Global South. And I know that financing in that sector is kind of lacking. Do you guys see that changing? And if you see it changing, where do you see the opportunities coming out of?
Take that one. I don't really. So, look, I think the one thing to remember is that a lot of the things that you will learn if you study energy are not fundamentally different in terms of how energy is procured, how it's paid for, the different regulatory structures under which it operates. So the first thing I would do is make sure you understand how energy is deployed in all of the places it's deployed. So and the different types of centralized versus distributed architectures. And a lot of the changes that need to happen in the Global South are really going to be leapfrog solutions that are basically using the cutting edge technology of what's being deployed in more advanced economies these days, mostly because those advanced economies are having constraints of their own in terms of the systems and the architectures that they're deploying of the type that the panel has already highlighted. But there are some great classes here that are specifically talking about, and it's maybe even one where going outside of SUMA will dramatically increase the access to those types of classes. The Climate School has a number of classes that are things like Climate and Society program. SEPA has some great classes in terms of energy access. So I do think that there are, this is definitely where SUMA can be a starting point to learn the foundation and fundamentals of it, but that you should look at the broader Columbia ecosystem, because I think there are a lot of people having that conversation here.
I would just add to that kind of on the kind of renewable energy solar front, that solar is something that's useful in a lot of places, not all places, but a lot of places. And there are certainly opportunities out there. What's has been difficult is kind of the regulatory environments and the raising capital kind of in those environments. And so those are additional challenges, but people are certainly still trying. There's still a need as costs come down. There's a need. And also, right, when we're looking at things like actually there being huge tariffs here, making it more expensive here, but costs are coming down rapidly. They're continuing to come down, whether it's solar or battery storage, so that actually can provide opportunities in other places. And you can see that shifts happen quite quickly. So I think that despite those additional challenges in the Global South, there are going to be opportunities, and it's more a matter of be involved there. So I think it just requires slightly different focus, and there, you may have to go through some more startups and early stage type companies rather than the more established players.
I will also say, I was just running through my mental list of some of our of the thousands of graduates that I've personally known through the years of teaching here. And we have some amazing alumni that are working in multilateral organizations, development banks. There was a team of students that went and started a pay-as-you-go solar model in East Africa. There's phenomenal alumni that are working on this issue. So I think everything that you've heard from the panel applies just as strongly to that sector. It's an important topic, and a lot of our students are very experienced in it.
I'll jump in, being South African, going home on Thursday. So I'm going to chat to a whole bunch of people in the industry there. Luke was talking about the LCOE, right? And if you have some kind of a fossil powered generation site, so much of your significant portion is just fuel coming in, right? And you can bring fuel in from anywhere. A lower portion of your cost of energy comes from the steel in the ground, which is non-movable. And one of the big concerns investing in the Global South is political certainty. The South is perceived to be more risky than the north, the country we live in, perceived. And so your cost of capital is higher. If you're installing solar or wind in the global south, your LCOE relative to something that's fuel-based isn't going to be, you'll have less comparative advantage vis-a-vis something fuel-based because you have a higher proportion of fixed capital in a more risky country. But I think segueing this to careers, which is the main topic of this conversation, if the Global South is where you're interested in, again, the alumni network, but also start thinking about which institutions do global funding or LATAM funding from New York or America versus which don't. And I can say that I was at a shop where you can see my CV, I was at Deutsche Bank, right? Deutsche Bank is a large European and an American bank with very little LATAM presence. So we did LATAM financing out of New York. I'm not Santander, which is so big in Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Chile, all of South America, that they do their own project finance out of Brazil, Colombia, Chile. And so my current job is North America only. So as you think about where you want to be, think about which shops are doing Global South financing from wherever you choose to be based.
Fantastic. Another question in the back?
Much for coming to visit us at Columbia. My question is for those of us who are thinking of starting a career in investment banking. I'd love to know, I'd love to have some advice in terms of how to secure a full-time offer as an intern, and then how to perform as a top bucket analyst after getting that return offer.
Jump in this one because I'm an investment bank and I've just been through the recruiting session. I'm going to say it's really, really hard right now for these master's programs because most investment banks and I blame Goldman Sachs for this. They started this 4 years ago. So they started recruiting or midpoint of the sophomore undergrad year. Yeah. Like these are kids who are like 19.
So you need to become a sophomore is what you're saying?
Yeah. No. Like, but seriously,
Yeah.
They recruit during the sophomore year. They give offers out 15 months in advance, right? So you're kind of midway or the end of your sophomore year, you're getting an offer to be an intern at the end of your junior year, which will hopefully then convert into a full-time offer for the senior year, right? And that's how the banks are doing it. So that is a challenge. Alternatively, getting into the regular summer associate program. So if you're on a 2-year program, then there's a summer associate program which you need to get into. Most banks will have a program, they'll have it publicized. But that is a challenge and those summer associate programs tend to be MBA focused. I'll say the other challenge is, and this is kind of twofold, it's for the desks as well as the candidates, that the generic associate recruiting tends to be focused on MBAs, on the kind of, without being gender specific, finance bros. You know the kind of I'm talking
So
about.
buy a vest is what you're saying.
Sorry?
Buy a vest.
Yeah. The Patagonia or I almost came in my North Face vest. It's sponsored by one of my clients, but yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But being on a project finance desk, we get a whole lot of finance bro CVs, and not all of those people are passionate about energy. And you have to have that passion and that willingness to do the detail, because God, how many hours have you spent reading documents? Like you've got to, it takes a special personality to be interested in reading page 327 of an offtake contract, right? And you've got to really be interested in the space to get into those docs. And so as a project finance desk, we're looking for people who've got that passion, who want to be opening those docs, who know what the clause 17b3 Roman 4 actually means, and how it relates to the model. So the answer from my perspective is that The formal programs can start really early, especially for associate, but also for analyst, but also for associate. But that banks there are openings, there is fluidity in the market. So be in contact with banks for when the role opens up. And that tends to happen in Q1 for obvious reasons.
I do want to echo that. So I started at JP Morgan's investment bank, and I did get my internship offer my first year of undergrad, and I kind of just continued. And so I think, yeah, they have a long pipeline, and it is very competitive, especially if you're not coming from like a very finance focused and mostly quantitative background, even though I do believe that honestly anyone can do those jobs. I'll leave it at that. But I think that there's
one with a vest.
I do not have a vest, and I've never had a vest, but fair point. I think that there's a couple points. I think the first point that I would make is don't be too focused on kind of what the exact organization is. Like, I would say focus on actually getting experience, like finance skills. If you want to work in finance, build those finance skills and build the actual expertise. And then you can make your way into, if you still want to go to the banks, you can make your way into the banks more. Now, having shown them you already have the skills, rather than trying to break into it, not having that background yet. So I think there's ways in, but there will be more about you already showing that you have the core skills. And then it will be a lot about who you know. Again, just meeting people and kind of seeing more what the opportunities are kind of on an ongoing basis. In terms of actually coming back, kind of, yeah, getting the internship and then converting it to a full-time offer. I think in those banks, one of the most important things is that you just work really, really hard. So work long hours. Networking is super important. So again, doing a lot of those, kind of getting coffee with a lot of people, trying to shadow a lot of people, and then ultimately really focusing on doing real work. So a lot of interns will do kind of more projects to, you know, entertain them. So I think as much as you can actually get involved in the actual work being done versus work that's more being given to you for you to learn, that is ultimately what ended up being very helpful for my internship. So I ended up just getting very involved in the actual transactions and extending internships through that way. So yeah, I think it's all about working on real deals and meeting a lot of people who then are invested in you to get the return offer.
Okay,
So-
I had my 5 seconds or so. 4 thoughts. Number 1, deliver quality on time. So when somebody says, I need you to do this, confirm what they need, when they need it, and get it to them in ample time. Number 2, develop. So your internship is probably 10 weeks. Ask on a regular basis, every week or 2 weeks, how am I going? What do I need to improve on? How can I improve on that? And then show that you have improved, because we're looking for people who not only have the skills, but more importantly, people who can develop, who will develop more skills, right? Once you've got those 2 nailed, then start asking around, what problems do you have? What other work can I do? How can I lift the load off other people? That will go a huge way to showing that you're collaborative. Because banks are teams, we've got a whole bunch of work and we need people to pick up the tasks. And then the 4th one is Machiavellian. Find out who the decision makers are. Find out who, they're going to be 2 or 3 people who sit in a room and decide who's going to get that return offer. Find out who they are and make sure you're addressing their concerns.
So in the end, this is all great advice, by the way. And you guys are amazing at lists of 4 things. Like I usually flame out after 3. And that's great advice, by the way. No matter what organization you're in, if you get an opportunity to do an internship or project work or any of those other things. What Greta and Niv just outlined, I think, are both really essential to not wasting the opportunity that you're given in those chances. So last question, super quick. I just want your thoughts, because I want you to reflect back on when you were sitting on this side of the table, just a few years ago. And if you had any kind of final advice you might give to your former self about what was going to happen to you in the next decade, what would that advice be? We can do it in any order, or we can make Roshni go first. That's
I do have something. So, okay. I would give myself the advice to not focus too much on the grades, right? And getting the best grades possible. But
okay, next.
No, listen, hear me out. But actually really focusing on what resonates with you, who resonates with you, and the tangible skills that you can get, right? Because sometimes you may have the choice between two classes, and you may choose the easier class because you want to just optimize for getting the best grades. So I'm not telling you don't work hard to get good grades. What I'm saying is focus more on the actual skills, the tangible skills that you want to build that will get you to, right, have the type of job, the type of career that you want to have, rather than saying, okay, I need to have the best grades possible. Because what I found is that having the best grades possible is not the most important things. It's much more about how you communicate, what skills you have, and then being able to, add value to a company and being very dedicated. So I think that's something that I would tell myself.
All join this program because of some insecurity, some idea that we're not enough, that we need a degree, that we need more. So the first thing I would tell you is believe in yourself. You are enough. You can do whatever you put your mind to. And it sounds cheesy, but it's exactly what you need. You need that. You need to start conveying that immediately within yourself. The second thing is the soft skills will carry you through whatever you're trying to do in life. And so you're spending, I don't know, 12 to 13 to 14 weeks listening to someone. That listening skill is really important. You don't think that you've just left a university becoming an expert listener, but you actually have. Now bring that into the real world, and then use every opportunity you have to present something in school, thinking about it as a safe space. This is where you can exercise. This is like padded walls, okay? Jump around. Some ideas.
Yeah, so coming here, I did a little bit of homework prep. I was looking through some of the skills we've listed out for entry-level candidates. None of them were hard skills. Is this person energetic? Are they a problem solver? Can they communicate? Are they collaborative? None of that is necessarily energy or finance specific. It's generic. Have you got the grit to work through it? Are you going to work through it with other people? Can you communicate? Can you learn? So the soft skills will carry you through. Travis and I got a lunch just before COVID, and I promised him to send him 3 articles. I remember what 2 of those articles were. I don't know what the third one was, but I know one of them, which I also picked up, and I will send to you after this, part of my homework. Article looking at the relative progression of engineering and English grads, and that engineers sprint. They come out of the blocks, they've got the skills that people need, and that's great. And after 10 years, those skills are depreciated, and there's a new set of engineers who've got the new skills. So engineers are sprinters. They sprint out of the gate. That's great, but it's the humanities students who know how to engage with people who've got the longevity in their career, who last. They're the marathon runners. They're not the sprinters, right? So if you want to go the distance in a whole career, you need those soft skills.
And as you said it, I was like, maybe I forgot that skill in the workforce. I maybe to round it out, we talked about what course is important, what course, that you'd want to take, and leaning into the soft skill recommendation, which I really fully agree with. unfortunately or fortunately, if you survive your capstone, these are the skills that you will need in the workforce. So capstone is a very necessary endeavor and journey that you must embark on, because I think working with a mix of people who come from all different backgrounds and all have different skills is is exactly, it's a microcosm of what the workforce is, and agreeing and disagreeing and managing those people. That is honestly, even if you took a financial modeling course and you're really good at it and you get in as an investment banker and you're an analyst, like, the people skills are what is going to, if and when you get promoted, you need to manage a team. It's crazy sometimes to me how you get promoted by doing something you're really good at, and then the thing that you get promoted to do is like nothing at all as to how you proved yourself, how you proved to the team that you were valuable at being promoted. It is in the end people management skills. So unfortunately or fortunately, capstone is a must course that you got to take.
Which is why it's one of the the only two required courses in the entire.
Other piece of advice I could say is if you don't want to do that, I mean, you can always just be the presenter and get out of doing all the work, which is kind of what I did. So other advice.
So I think you guys can see why these are some of my favorite humans. And it is something I want you to take away is like sometimes when you think about people who are out there doing professional careers who have fancy titles like managing director or lead underwriter, these are very intimidating things. But I want you to know that in most cases, nearly all cases, they are human beings. And they are lovely human beings who want to who have been where you've been in the process. And if you approach them as a lovely human being yourself, that's going to be your path to success. So with that, I hope you'll help me thank the panel for their time and being the wonderful human beings that they are. Do we have any other announcements? Anything to do? All right, it's late and it's hot. Oh wait, David's got an announcement.
2 numbers. The first number is 5%. So when people build a data center, if you're building a 1 gigawatt data center, that's about $40 billion of chips, about $10 billion of real estate, and at an upfront capital cost of maybe $4 a watt, $4 billion of energy infrastructure. So of the whole data center, 4, 5, maybe 6% of the data center is energy usage. Data centers don't care about the price of energy. They demand energy, and that's the demand for people at the moment. My second number is 1. And that is the number as of yesterday of openings I have in my team.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks.